Hello everyone, I'm the old class leader. As early as 2020, I made a video of hash browns on the horizontal screen. At that time, I found that the quality of hash browns in China was really mixed. Most of the workmanship materials are cruel, but among them, there are also some that have done well. So today I found 5 models that will be released in 2021. I feel that the domestic handle is better than a horizontal one. Assessment. They are the Flying Black Warrior 2 Pro, the Final General Rainbow C1, Boitang Pro 2, Gullividra 2 Pro and Beitong Azura 3. Of course, in order to be able to see the effect, this time we also added a benchmark player. That's right, it's the Xbox Series controller. In this way, we can also intuitively see the gap between domestic controllers and Xbox controllers. Before it started, first, let's look at the platforms supported by these controllers. The details are shown in the figure below, because all devices support PC. So we will use PC as the main battlefield for comparison here, and S as an auxiliary reference. Let's take a look at the specific performances of the 6 players. The first is the appearance, because the subjective component of this part of the evaluation is relatively important. So I won't score here, it's a perfect score. Next, when the corresponding handle appears, the students can hit your appearance score on the public screen. The first is the Xbox controller that many students are using. This Xbox controller inherits Microsoft's appearance as it has always been. The classic design style is clean and edited is that there are more gaps in this area. Relatively large. It has an impact on the overall aesthetics. The non-smart Black 52 Pro has no change in appearance compared with the previous Black 52. It's just that there are more in terms of cooperation. This black and gold color scheme also follows the non-wisdom of the design. Since then, the Mecha Wind Gap control is also better than Xbox. There will also be RGB lighting effects during the game, but this is not very significant. After all, who would stare at the controller while playing games? The handle of Mojang Rainbow CE is the same as the previous one in appearance. The Spox model in the Afterglow series produced by PDB is exactly the same. Whether it is mold or transparent plus RGB lighting effects, it is the same. Even the connection ports are also macro. I guess it should be the last general who bought the plan of the PDP. Or the two companies should have a close relationship. The transparent case is indeed completely different from other handles in terms of temperament. After connecting the equipment, you can jump directly. Even the vibration of the motor can be seen clearly, which is quite interesting. But again, who would stare at the controller while playing a game? Hyatang's Pro 2 is the only book handle with a parallel waist bar. As for the appearance, because it is a nostalgic retro style, for veteran players from that era, can still bring back memories for the first time. The Banky button is the only one designed inside the handle. Make the integration of products stronger. This gap control is much smaller than that of the previous players. Fox King Kong 2 completely inherits the exterior design of the first generation. If you don't look closely, you can't see the difference at all. The product design also follows the process of simple air vacuum. It also adds a strong texture to the product. But this gap control is as good as the Spox handle. And the biggest problem of the vacuum process is that the subsequent paint is seriously lost. In the long run, there is no way to stay in Beitong forever. Azura 3 is also very different in appearance. The overall feeling is more hardcore. There is also RGB embellishment in the middle, but this design style adds a strong plastic feel to the whole. Do you like it specifically? Can only vary from person to person. The receiver is stored under a removable face case. I personally like this design very much. Just disassemble the shell and sew it up. It's really a bit shocking. Seeing this, who do the students think is the most good-looking? After seeing the appearance. Next, let me take a look at the feel experience of the 6 handles. Here I will evaluate from the grip and the feel of the buttons, because there will still be a certain subjective component in terms of feel. But compared to the appearance, it is much smaller. So I'll talk about my personal subjective experience. First of all, the feeling of holding. Because in addition to Hyatang's Pro 2, the rest of the controllers are modeled after the Xbox. So if we only talk about the grip feeling, the difference between this handle is not huge. But I personally feel that the worst of them is Boito's Pro 2. The handle is still comfortable to hold, but the position of the 2 back keys happens to be on the middle finger. The trigger force at the focus point is very small. Therefore, when pressing the joystick down, it is almost 100% mistaken. The second fork is the same as the problem of the Azura 3 and the 8-bits. The backsword is very easy to cover, but the difference is the backsword of Azura 3. The trigger is stronger. The probability of accidental contact will be smaller, so it ranks 5th. The 4th place is Mojang's Rainbow 4E after modifying the back key. The feel is much better than before, but the bigger problem is This case because it is made of PC material once sweaty super old hands. Next is the ABS plastic used in the non-papermaking Black 52 Pro shell. It should be said that there is no hard injury in the grip, and the spare parts are also in place. It is more convenient to press. There is neither a focus point nor a hand. It should be the most perfect spare parts handling solution at present. The second place is Gully King Kong 2 Pro because it uses a double-layer spraying process, so that its skin-like material will not volatilize over time. It will not change over time, but in its place there is another problem. That is super rare, and it will still have a certain impact on development. The anti-slip pattern on the back is the same as the Spox. The 3D Thunder carving fan pattern process is very comfortable. But because it is an internal sanction, it makes its particles very soft and comfortable as Spox, which is more direct. The first place I give here is the Xbox series. When I first got this handle, I felt amazing. The design of the 3D Thunder carving fan pattern process on the back. This makes the anti-slip pattern particles very delicate. This texture allows players to hold on. Feels like it's in the palm of your hand. Massage and the 2 trigger buttons are also added to this process. So in terms of overall grip, my personal favorite is the feel of the Xbox. Next, let's look at the feel of the buttons. Because most of them are conductive adhesives, the difference is not very big. But in addition to the action line, there are also joysticks and triggers. Therefore, here we combine the feel of the 2 parts for evaluation. Let me explain in advance, after many students bought the handle, such a situation will be encountered. As 2 sticks, the press feel is inconsistent with the sound. This can also happen with shoulders. This is actually normal. These 2 parts are basically Alpine components. Individual differences are relatively large. In addition, the left and right structures inside the handle are different. Hence the sound is different. It's normal, so as long as it doesn't affect use, there is no problem. I personally feel the worst here is the Beitong Azura 3 button. Cannot be said that it is uncomfortable. It's just that the force of the micro movement button is a bit big. It doesn't take long for the thumb to be sore. It still has a great impact on hand fatigue. Although the sensation of shaking does not come into contact with the handle housing. It makes it feel very smooth, but the shaking feel of other homes is not bad. Therefore, it ranks 6th. 5th place I gave Haotang's Pro 2. First of all, the feel of this trigger button is very meaty. The rebound force is much smaller than other handles. In addition, although the dual sticks have the same layout as the PS controller, but the spacing between the 2 joysticks is really a bit. It is not very comfortable to use it up close. The 4th place is given to encourage the King Kong 2 Pro handle. The buttons are actually very good after adapting. But the self-developed electromagnetic joystick has no physical contact. Compared with the Alpine rocker, the force is 0.2 Newton-meters lower. Whether this feel is good or bad, there is still some controversy. However, a metal ring has been added to the rocker, in addition to the anti-hanging powder, or make it feel smoother. In addition to this is the key switch. Although it is designed with an anti-conductive rubber feel, but it can only be said that it is infinitely close to conductive glue. In the process of use, you will still feel the difference compared with the human feeling. Conductive coke is still slightly inferior. Previously, some students reported that they would encounter indirect linkage triggers. So I deliberately tried the hot table at hand, and my hot table belonged to the 3rd batch of goods. It is found that this phenomenon still occurs. However, you need a strong Vajra finger to go. The next Black Knight 2 Pro, Rainbow C1 and Xbox joystick. Both are Alpine buttons and they are also made of conductive glue. So the overall difference is not very big. The biggest difference is that the Xbox has a deeper shell texture. Therefore, there will be a rustling feeling in the process of turning the joystick, which is not very smooth. So let's take the 3rd place. The unmade Black Warrior 2 Pro adds a diamond ring to the joystick. Smoother feel. The following is the comprehensive feeling of each handle on the buttons and feel. After understanding the feel, let's take a look at how these controllers perform in terms of functionality. The 6 controllers here have all been upgraded to the latest firmware. It is emphasized here that after buying any handle, the first thing must be to update the firmware. This is really very important. Otherwise, you are likely to encounter some inexplicable bugs, especially new products like Gully King Kong 2 Pro. At present, it is known that the vibration is adjusted for 1.5 minutes. When fully charged NST, situations such as low power can be solved by upgrading the firmware. Baoitang provided me with a firmware that was being improved internally, but because it hasn't been officially released yet, so I'm still using their previous firmware here. because we are looking at unique features. That is, those old bursts, vibration adjustment and other ordinary functions. I made a table. You can refer to it, after all, as an official handle. So it is similar to the functions of opening and hanging such as continuous read. Xbox controllers are not supported. It is also reasonable. Non-Smart Black 52 is the only one that does not support continuous shooting. You can only record yourself through the read function, because Beitong Azura 3 is not compatible with the NS platform. Therefore, it is understandable that there is no one-click wake-up on NFC. Among them, only encourage all normal functions to be supported. But I can only encourage myself to have no software. Therefore, all the features it supports are not like this. Other handles can also be adjusted arbitrarily. For example, other people's joysticks, triggers, and adjustments can set the effective range by themselves. However, encouragement can only choose a few preset modes, built as interchangeable. It is also only interchangeable for the ABXY buttons corresponding to the two platforms. Next, let's take a look at the unique features of each company. The first is that the kicking rod assist function supports the Kuli King Kong 2. What do you say about the Pro Flying Black Samurai 2 Pro and the Final General Rainbow CD? Do you think this feature is important? Personally, I feel that it may not be that important for the controller FPS boss. Chinese subtitles YK. Beitong Azura 3 is a unique manual joystick. Adjust 0 degrees and manually adjust the trigger travel. Compare. Software adjustment is indeed faster. The 8-bit Hall is a removable battery on the back, and also supports number 5 batteries. This idea is exactly the same as the Xbox controller, etc. I had a bold idea. If we stuff the battery of the octagonal into the Xbox controller, will it be universal? This is just a snow transmission, which is equivalent to spending money on a handle. Bought a controller that supports NSPC iOS Android 4 platform. Add a charging set for an Xbox controller. So I give this feature of Beitong Pro 2 full marks. The unique function of the Final General Rainbow CE is powerful, because this handle does not carry a battery. Whether it's NS or PC, only wired connection, unique function, refers to a function unique to the handle. So even if it's a bad function, it is also a unique function. Finally, there is the encouraged 10-minute learning function. The read of most handles has requirements for the number of movements and time, and the encouraged read can be recorded up to 10. The operation of the minute player is still very awesome. But after the measured short recording is okay, the long recording is easy. Because the frame rate is unstable, it is not very accurate. However, the files you record support sharing, which is still very good. Next, let's talk about the product's usage guidance and firmware. The best thing to upgrade and use guidance is the Rainbow of Mengjiang. See, a very complete instruction manual is included with the user. The second is Guli. Although it is just a piece of paper, the content is also very detailed. Babatang and Feiji are much simpler. But the most pitting thing is a Beitong fart, and it doesn't let you scan the code directly. Pay attention to the official account. I don't understand. Is it that hard to bring an instruction manual? Who wants to follow your official account? Next is Gu Jian's upgrade guidance. This is really a trick. In addition to encouraging, and Beitong can be found directly on the official website. Most of the others require official software upgrades. In particular, the last general sent me a link to a firmware upgrade, actually from the forum and not logged in. There is no way to download. What's even more awesome is that after I downloaded it, changed 3 computers, all upgrade failures. The most awesome thing is the handle that failed to upgrade, and even the official app can't be connected. It's like a handle that has been moved through the machine. In the end, it was the last general's face that was retied after the upgrade. Later, I found out that the firmware version has not been updated for too long, so it has to be updated. A transitional version to continue updating. The latest version. This is really easy for players who don't understand. It is recommended to improve it in the future. Let's take a look at the most important stick death problem for FPS players. Here's a precaution that the joystick dies. It is mainly divided into 3 parts. I will use a garbage handle as a negative teaching material to demonstrate to you. If you look closely, you can see that I am in the process of rotating. There will be an adsorption phenomenon in the cross zone formed in the upper, lower, left, and right positions. In this case, even if I turn the joystick, it will not output the corresponding arrow straightness, so it can be called a dead zone. And this book handle is actually an 8-way dead zone problem. Can be said that it is very serious. The second is the dead zone at the center point. When the joystick is centered, I shook the stick near the center point, and there was no corresponding arrow. This is the center point dead zone. It doesn't have much impact on action games. But for racing games as well as FPS games, the impact is very deadly. Finally, the edge of the joystick is dead, and the range of the circle in the picture is the joystick. effective output range. And this stick goes beyond many in the game. This part will not be reflected in the game, so it can also be understood as a death. Overall, this has the least impact. Corresponding to the handle, it can be understood that it has reached the outermost ring in advance. And now most of the garbage handles are like this, because I said it at the beginning. Several handles in this review are above the passing line in my personal feeling. So what follows? Don't take it as the norm for most controllers. The URL of the test website is here. Students can also test themselves through this website. The depth of the handle stick in use at hand. First of all, let's take a look at this one from Beitong Azura 3. The waist bar tuning of the handle is always good. There is no cross-shaped depth, and the outer ring is perfectly controlled. But the depth of the central point is very serious. This is for FPS games. The impact is still relatively large. Next is the non-intelligent Black Warrior 2 Pro. What do you say about this controller? Seeing this training effect, I am personally disappointed. Because its predecessor, Black Knight 2, also did not die in a cross shape. But on the Black Knight 2 Pro appeared. I went to consult the officials. Here's their reply to me. Translated is to be miserable by the supplier. If you change it again, it won't be anymore. The death control of the outer ring is still good, but due to the presence of a cruciform of death, so the center point will still shake. Although this death range is very small, but it still exists after all. In FPS games, it will be very less competitive than other competitors. Next is Hachieto, which also disappointed me, because in the new Pro 2 Xbox version of Bawitang that I reviewed last month, Hachieto is really good at polishing the joystick, but the last time the Pro 2 Bluetooth version updated the firmware was last year. In October, the performance of the joystick was relatively poor, although there is no direction to die. But the outer circle is still relatively large, and the center point is not badly controlled. But it did not reach true non-death, although this overall performance is okay. But compared to the Pro 2 Xbox version, it is still inferior. So can you consider updating the firmware? Some students may think that this central point should not be dead. Let me take a look at Microsoft's polishing and you will know. This is called the true non-death mode. Even if it's just a light touch, there will be corresponding numerical changes. However, Microsoft is also relatively average in terms of control of the outer ring. Not a pure circle. Maybe Microsoft knows that the outer circle has little impact, so be it. The next thing that surprised me the most was the rainbow. After setting the depth to 0 in the app, the C1 controller can also achieve true zero death like Microsoft. And its outer ring is still a pure circle, so to speak. This tuning is even better than Microsoft's. And after choosing the no dead zone mode, Gully King Kong 2 Pro, it can also achieve a truly dead zone synthesis. The performance of the players in joystick tuning is roughly as follows. But here's something to say. In addition to FPS and racing games, other games do not recommend setting no dead zones, especially the center point. Students can deliberately add some dead zones in the software adapted to the handle. Otherwise, in many games, if you also set the stick's dead zone to 0 in the game, there will be drift. The reason is simple, that is, when set to no dead zone mode, there is no way for the stick to return to the center point, which is determined by the rocker structure. It doesn't have a way to go back to the most central coordinates every time. So there will definitely be drift after the test just now. Students should be able to find out. So a platform like NS that doesn't have many car guns. The smart old man directly added a center point to NS Pro to die. So if you don't play design and racing games, it is best to leave the center point through adaptation software. A little death is recommended to leave 5%. Finally, let's take a look at the workmanship materials of the contestants. The quality of the workmanship and materials. To a certain extent, it determines the service life of a handle. Let's take a look at it next. Explain in advance. No matter how many appliances you dismantled as a child, it is not recommended to remove the handle here. Some structures are more complex. It's really easy to break or not fit. First of all, let's look at the materials used inside the Xbox controller, because you need to connect to Xbox. So it is equipped with a Microsoft chip that specializes in wireless transmission and reception. Next to it are two antennas. The whole motherboard is very clean. There is no trace of the Pigman at all. The PCB also uses the industry's highest standard of 1.6 millimeters. If you have been to junior high school, you should look at the excellent standard card pool. But the bad thing is that many solder joints are not very full. In particular, the motor and trigger wires are very easy to break. For example, I have already broken this, but it is not a big problem. After I weld it, I will hang the girl free. It should also sell for a good price. Just kidding. How could I be that kind of person? The class infrastructure uses Holt's induction. This is also the most perfect plan for class infrastructure so far. both longevity and feel are the best. At the same time, there are 2 more handles than other handles on the moving parts. Vibration motor for suitable games can still greatly improve the operating experience. And the rocker is Alpine. But the main problem is in this conductive foot of the moving part, because the shape of the handle has a curvature relationship, so that the B line is not on the same block as other buttons. The B line on the PCB is relatively long. There will also be a case of stuck keys. We can say that the handle of this design scheme at the moment, there will be more or less this risk. This is determined by the physical structure. Generally speaking, the Xbox controller is still very solid in terms of internal workmanship, but quality control issues may still need time to polish. The rollover rate is too high, because... Next, let's take a look at the Rainbow Thorn chair of the last General. This handle is also very clean in terms of motherboard handling. But if you look closely, you will find that there are still residues of its pig sweat agent. The joystick is the same as the Xbox's Alpine trigger. Compared with the scheme using a sliding resistor identifier, the biggest shortcoming of Holt's induction is that the service life of the carbon film is gone. The trigger is dead. The motherboard is also the highest standard of 1.6 millimeters. The 2 motors are also welded, but the solder joints are still relatively full. It's not as easy to break as the Xbox, and the same goes for the action parts. Is on 2 PCBs. Generally speaking, the materials used for ink like Rainbow CE are also very good. Let's take a look at Bavitang's Pro 2-tooth pulling version. After I took apart this handle, the biggest feeling is why so many screw shells only use 4 screws, but this motherboard actually used 7 pieces. This small subboard has as many as 9 pieces. As I disassembled further, finally found the problem. It turns out that the motherboard of Pro 2 uses 1.4 millimeters. The secondary plate is 1.2 millimeters. Because the thinner the PCB, the easier it is to deform during use. Over time, some small capacitors and other components are at risk of falling off. And Bavitang chose to fix it with so many screws. It should be to prevent chips. After all, 9 screws are used for the small subplate. The motherboard also has 2 plastic backplates for reinforcement. In general, the problem should not be very big. The 2 motors also adopt a welding scheme. The cleanliness of the motherboard is also very good, although not as good as Microsoft, but this level is really good. The joystick is also Alpine, but the trigger button chooses a sense of pressure. Conductive glue, because its structure is relatively simple. Therefore, the service life is also much higher than that of the sliding virus. But a bigger problem is that it doesn't feel good. Now I finally know why the trigger cord of the Pro 2 is so uncomfortable. Probably for consistency in the hand. Bavitang's Pro 2 is also the only one of these handles with conductive glue for sharp keys. In general, this handle is still a bit far from the previous 2 in terms of the amount of function. But this handle has a relatively big advantage in structure. That is, ABXY has 4 action keys on the same plane. Therefore, the 4 action keys will not be stuck and disconnected. Next is the Flying Black 52 Pro. The handle is the most difficult screw to remove of all handles. After disassembling, there are still many buckles. I like this. I personally don't think it's necessary. The trigger is also a sliding rheostat, but the good thing is, the way the motor was connected finally turned into a mistake. This solution is stronger than a welding machine and is easier to disassemble. But the bad thing is that the battery is not protected by a separate battery compartment. Like this pouch battery, I personally feel that it would be safer to add a battery compartment. The PCB also uses a 1.6 millimeters thick rocker. Mask Shalby's flew in the processing of the action parts. Take another approach. Place the external piece separately on another PCB. What is the specific effect? We can only wait for the test of time. I believe that many students may not know what this structure is for. In fact, this is an antenna, used to reinforce the infinite signal. It can be said that this non-made handle is also genuine in terms of materials. The following is the Gully King Kong that I evaluated not long ago. The biggest difference between the 2 Pro and other handles, it uses the self-developed Holt's induction joystick. It completely solves the problem of short joystick drift life. In addition to this, it is after this self-developed feel. The service life is also greatly beyond the traditional guide glue. Theoretically, it can solve the phenomenon of stuck parts. But who would have thought that before the official version was released, the boss would change the mold without authorization? As a result, the first shipment overturned. Judging from the next few batches, this problem has been solved. In fact, Gully is still very solid in the materials used for this handle. The move keys use the same Holt sensing scheme as the Xbox. The PCB is also the best 1.6 millimeters battery for night. The battery compartment is also specially added to protect the motor, and the same plug is used. But here is encouragement and some wise maneuvers. That is, the sensitivity of the Hallband aircraft is too high and prone to jitter. This is reflected in the game. Therefore, Xbox and the first generation of King Kong Pro are both automatic calibration shift buttons when they are turned on. But in the second generation, it was changed to manual calibration. The explanation given is that when the automatic calibration is turned on, if he encounters the class line, then he is not allowed. Although, wouldn't it be nice to restart? This is no better than the control manual. Is calibration much easier? Maybe the number of people giving feedback is too much. Encouragement retuned again. Students who have purchased it can go to the official website to upgrade the latest firmware. Can be said that this handle is already top-notch in terms of materials. But there is the same problem as the Xbox controller. That is, quality control still needs to be improved. There is still about 5% of the push and exchange rate. I hope it can be improved in the future. Finally, let's take a look at the Azura 3 handle from Beitong. The same Alps rocker socket is a motor. The sliding rheostat trigger 1.6mm PCB is basically clean in terms of materials. But the difference is that the action part adopts the scheme of soft glue and micro movement. Therefore, there will be no disconnection of the card. In addition, Beitong added a plastic base to the bottom of the rocker. Limits its rotation area. This allows it to be in contact with the shell. This way, even after a long time, the joystick will not appear white powder. And this design makes this joystick quite smooth when used. Can be said that this smoothness is for all handles. Number 1. I saw the disassembly of several handles. It is estimated that many students think that most of the handles look like this. Then you are very wrong. If you have seen my previous video, you will find the above handles. How luxurious the workmanship and materials are. In order to be a control group, I found a handle for about 200 yuan. It is the one that made a counterexample when the joystick died just now. Let me see what most handles look like on the inside of now. The motor is also welded because it has fallen off. So there is no main and secondary plates here that are 1mm thick. There are not many screws in the middle. There is also a very large gap between the two PCBs. It will deform very easily. The pin angle of the fixed stick is directly bent. No welding was done. It's been a long time since the workmanship and materials were used, so it's strange that there is no problem. The waste rod uses a product that is not marked with the manufacturer. So I consulted with industry insiders what kind of waste rod is this. As a result, the reply was, well, in fact, most of the handles under 200 yuan are long like this. So for many players facing so many controller brands, if you don't understand it before, it's really easy to step on thunder. This table shows the internal materials used for all the handles we evaluated today. Finally, there is the delay that many people are concerned about. First of all, students need to understand one thing. That is, all wireless handles have delays, especially on the PC side. Secondly, exercise is also normal, because the receivers at this stage are all devices connected through the 2.4G frequency band signal. There are too many devices in this frequency band. Interference with each other. Even if someone upstairs or next door is using it, it will have an impact. Hence, want unlimited fun playing on computer. Not only do you have requirements for your family's network situation, but you also have to beg your neighbors. Do not use devices in this frequency band. So broken chains are very, very normal. Therefore, for PCU2 students, I personally recommend these handles of wired U2. I tested the connection to the computer. You can refer to it. Because there is no receiver at this stage, King Kong 2 Pro, so it can only be connected via Bluetooth. As a result, my test is relatively stable on the notebook, but on desktops the problem is bigger. Because of the use of Bluetooth connection, some data processing, you still have to call the CPU, so there will still be frame drops. Wireless connectivity is not recommended for individuals. And Mahjong Rainbow C1 is a wired handle. Therefore, wireless connectivity is not supported. Finally, I made a summary of several controllers. Students can purchase on demand. Among them, Black Knight 2 Pro is the price with receiver. The rest are prices without receivers. Although I have already carefully selected here, through this evaluation, we can still discover new stages. There is no perfect handle on the market. There will be more or less certain pain points. At the same time, it can also be seen. There are already many domestic manufacturers whose products are close to Xbox, even beyond. Although many students have deep feelings for Xbox and other big manufacturers, but that doesn't mean everything else is garbage. Finally, it is hoped that the handle industry can make more innovative reforms. For example, Sony's vibration-encouraged Holtz induction joystick. Blind resource integration cannot promote the development of the industry. I am the old squad leader, an up master who focuses on game history and hardware evaluation. If you like this video, just follow me 3 times in a row.